Hey, how are you? This is Jim Prusak from the Pain PT, and I'm here with another success story today. I'm really happy to bring Hayley on here. I'm so happy she is willing to come forth to share her story of success and recovery because I think it's going to be really inspiring. You guys are going to get a lot out of this. So, Hayley, thanks for being here today.
No, thank you, Jim. Thank you so much for asking me to do this. And it was one of the things I always, throughout my journey was I can't wait to be in a position to maybe one day do a recovery story. Although it's much more nerve-wracking than you think it's going to be.
I know no matter how much I downplay it and say, just take it easy, it's going to be good. There's always a little bit of nervousness, but hey,
Yeah,
another opportunity, right, to work through some of our anxiety.
sure, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so why don't you let everybody know, the audience, maybe start from the beginning, what you went with, what were your symptoms, and then we'll kind of go from there through the story with you.
Yeah, sure. So my symptoms, so I'm originally from the UK and I moved to California in mid 2019. And it was really I so up until we were due to move, for example, in the July, and I gave up work around April in preparation for that move. And I would say about 2 weeks after I gave up work, I started to develop some facial pain. Um, the thing that was interesting there at the time, my sister was going through a lot of issues with her teeth herself. And I was accompanying her on a couple of those appointments, and we just got really unlucky. We ended up going to an out of office dentist who told my sister that she should really go and see her regular dentist on Monday, but ultimately you sometimes you just have to live with tooth pain for the rest of your life. And my sister wasn't that bothered by it, I didn't think, but it really traumatized me, the thought that you could, oh my goodness, you could like develop something which means you're in pain for the rest of your life. And but anyway, I honestly didn't think I don't remember dwelling on it or anything. I kid you not, about a week later after that appointment, I was driving home. I think I was probably at the gym, driving home, and nothing unusual happening. I was like, I've got these really weird sensations in my face, and I thought it was tooth pain. And then, I mean, just to kind of then summarize, I could kind of go day by day, but I was just going everywhere I could to try and find out what was going on with my teeth. No one could really find anything. Someone did a root canal, someone ended up taking out a tooth because I just convinced them that they needed to. But the pain was actually getting worse. Every time I had a dental procedure, the pain in my face was just getting worse and worse. And it was actually became it was like a jaw, it became a jaw pain rather than a tooth sensation. Um, so this went on, and I was just getting kind of lost as to, I had no idea what was going on. A couple of dentists told me it was TMJ and I needed to see a TMJ specialist. But by this time, we were really off. The date at which we were moving from the UK to the US was now fast approaching. And so it was also, I had the kind of facial thing, which I was absolutely terrified of. I was terrified I was going to have this pain. I was going to end up in the US and be in pain, and no one will be able to help me. So I was just on this mission to resolve the pain. Parallel to that, we were kind of moving out of our house. We were in temporary accommodation in a hotel. Everything was just kind of crazy. And I just honestly now I remember standing to get a coffee, and I just was like, I was just in total fear of everything. And I was like, I just feel like I just want my life to be normal again. Um, and anyway, so it's kind of fast forward, we kind of, we're now coming up. I think, we go to the airport for our departure flight. And I'm just kind of think of like key moments now looking back. But something that really struck me, it was like a very emotional farewell with my family. But the moment I went through the kind of passport control or through security, it was like the pain intensified to a level of, say it was a kind of like a 6 or a 7, I suddenly had this kind of level of like 10 pain in my face, which when I think back now made like no sense, right? I hadn't even got on the plane. So it wasn't like, because because when we arrived in the US, I had a lot of doctors telling me that the reason for that was because the plane and the pressure of the plane had actually just kind of made everything much worse. But now I look back, I hadn't even kind of stepped on board the aircraft when that plane really shot up. We got to the US. I was just like, I got to find someone to help me. I'm in so much pain. I couldn't even focus on unpacking or the new house or anything. It was just, and I think within 24 hours, I managed to find a TMJ specialist. And that was just kind of, it just went from bad to worse. I saw a guy and we were really naive around the US system. We knew it was different to the UK in that you didn't have access to the NHS. And so we didn't realize kind of there were still some kind of rules and regulations in place. And then, we ended up paid someone up like $8,000 up front with a commitment that we'd spend another 20,000 because that's apparently what was needed to so the diagnosis I got from that doctor is that my face had collapsed.
Oh my God. I never heard it before. What kind of diagnosis?
There was nothing on the x-ray to support that. There was absolutely, but I was in that place of feeling so anxious and so fearful. I couldn't even really think straight to ask the right questions. And then Jim, I think I mentioned to you that before that diagnosis, one of the things that the scan did show was a mass in my face, which turned out to be completely benign, but it was another kind of 3 or 4 days until I got the all clear. So again, just continuing to ramp up, and I was like, this is what's been wrong with me, I've got this mass in my face. And then of course it wasn't, but I guess I was so relieved not to have that diagnosis that I didn't challenge the doctor or the dentist on the new diagnosis of my face having collapsed. And then we just went through this just ridiculous treatment of wearing braces for, I don't know, maybe 3-4 months. And then there was just no progress. I mean, it was horrific. I was in, most of the time I was in like a 9 out of 10 level of pain. And had it not been for my son, I probably wouldn't have got out of bed most days. It was just horrific. It took everything I had to kind of take him to school. It was terrible. Some days I was like, I cannot go on another day. I'm in so much pain. And at that time, I don't really remember there being anything that like brought the pain down. I guess my parents came out to visit us, I guess 2 months into us being here. And during that time, my pain really reduced quite significantly. Just day by day, I noticed that I'd wake up and the pain wouldn't come as frequently or as early. And sometimes I'd get to 3 o'clock, and normally by 3 or 4, the pain would be kind of really intense. As soon as they went home, my pain just came straight back. The dentist at the time said, it was because this kind of device was now working and that's why I was getting relief, but he didn't have an explanation as to why once my parents went home, the pain came back. And, I'm kind of making a really simple comparison now, but at the time I didn't see the connection, that I was better because my parents were here. I felt a bit calmer, some familiarity, safer maybe. And then they went home, the pain came back, and this just went on and on. And then we came back to the UK in November. By that point, I'd done some, just again, not at all thinking about TMS, was just looking at TMJ, and someone had recommended Botox injections. And when I arrived in the UK again, I went back to the UK system because I was like, I kind of at least understand it a bit more. So I had a kind of course of Botox, and within 5 hours, the pain had gone, which again is crazy, right? Because Botox, even if it's going to work, doesn't work in 5 hours. And then pretty much for the rest of the time we were on the UK trip, the pain was really, it was pretty low. It was and I think I was just convinced that the Botox had worked. And then lo and behold, we got back to Heathrow. And again, as soon as I got back to Heathrow, the pain just started to come up and up and up. And by the time we got back to San Francisco, I was just back to square one. And that just kind of continued. we came back to the UK again for Christmas, and I didn't really, that time I didn't see a kind of improvement in my pain. And I think maybe that's because in fact I was a really bad Christmas. I was at my parents' house, and just couldn't enjoy any of the festivities or anything, and just spent the whole time looking at someone in the UK that could help me. And I finally saw a facial specialist, and his speciality was in people who'd had trauma to the face. Went and saw him, and it was really interesting. This was kind of a little bit of the start, really. And he looked at me and said, "I'm going to examine you in a moment, but there's nothing wrong with your face. This is all stress." And I thought he was totally crazy. Like, and he said, "You just need," but he just said, "You need to go home, you need to relax into your life, you need to start relaxing more, and then I promise you the pain will subside. But it will come back when you get stressed again." And I was like, great. and and then I came back, and it didn't really improve at all. I mean, I felt a little bit of relief after that consultation that he hadn't found anything. But he just hadn't. I mean, he was amazing, and I'm not at all like being derogatory towards him. He'd made me open to this being stress. But he hadn't given me any tools or tips. He just said, go and relax, and the pain will go away. And of course it didn't. And we came back. The pandemic hit in February, March 2020, and then it just was like I just saw no improvement until finally I think I discovered the Curable app. And then that was when things started to change, but nowhere near as kind of quickly as, it opened my mind. I got relief from some of the techniques, but I still wasn't connecting the dots at all. And it was just a really miserable year of the same. I started to maybe in that time notice that when we were doing things that were more relaxing as a family, to the extent that you could during COVID. But I remember once one of the lockdowns ended and some friends invited us for some drinks, and I remember being kind of halfway through that thinking, I haven't got any pain in my face, or I haven't got any but just moments of no real consistency. And certainly at that time I couldn't relate to any of it. The cold, whenever I was really cold, the pain got worse. And again, I just thought that was some sort of medical reason. But now I know that cold doesn't make me feel relaxed. I can't bear the cold. So of course my body feels less safe when I'm cold. So that was the reason that the pain increased. And then I really do think I went another year, and it wasn't until maybe Christmas 2020 that I was starting to really watch the Dan Buglio videos. And I did a consultation with him, which was again really good. He was great. He basically gave me all of the tools and tips, but he was a little bit he was almost too humble, in the sense that he was like, I think you can just do it now. Like, I'm confident this is what you have. And I feel like I would just be taking, almost you'd be seeing me. I'm not sure what else I can kind of give you. And I think he's kind of changed that a lot with a lot of his kind of online coaching. And I feel like you can get more regular access to him. And I think also I was one of those people, which is probably one of the reasons I have this problem, is I felt like I was bothering him, which I'm sure
You won't bother him. If he's watching right now, I'm sure he's shaking his head going, "You're not bothering me. This is what I do for a living."
And so I was just kept following him and taking away his tools. And then I think it was through maybe following him, and I did a little bit of Danny Fagan, that your name came up. And I think it first came up in relation to somatic tracking, and I'd done a kind of a little bit of that, I think, on the Curable app, which is where I'd noticed the pain move. And so I feel like I did some of those exercises on your videos first before I reached out, and I just really wanted to make sure that I was reaching out to the right person. And there's also for me a little bit of apprehension, because you're always really worried that person's going to say to you, "No, this isn't TMS," and you do have something terribly wrong. And then I think that was, I'm just trying to think of when that was, Jim, because it's been a quite a long journey for me, right?
Yeah, I was trying to think how much time again how much time we worked together. It was a good amount of time, right? It was definitely over a year.
Yeah.
Um,
It was over a year.
year.
I mean, at first I was driving you crazy and wanting to meet every week. And sometimes if I could have seen you more often than that, I would have done. And then it's just kind of got less and less as I've got closer to this point. Um, so I think, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of I'm just trying to think if I've missed anything kind of key. I mean, you and I noticed patterns throughout that time where I started to have vacations and the pain would just go or almost go. We noticed when things that were going on, when the pain was really high, right? That just were just not obvious to me. I had no idea that those things would be upsetting me or I'd be stressed by them, but you kind of help me just work, help me understand that. Um, so I think that's kind of, yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. And then I just would say, in terms of, now I look back, before I've had history of panic attacks, um, eating disorder when I left school, just lots of TMS things. I used to faint a lot or feel like I was going to faint, and no one could ever find the reason for that. And so I've had TMS, I'd say pretty much, I don't know, since I was like my early teens, but just in different manifestations.
Yeah, it's interesting your story because the way it started and where it hit you was is it interesting because of your sister, how she was going through that. And it's almost like when your stress hit, it took the latest thing that you were the pathway that it could take, which was your sister's facial pain, right? And it went into your body that way, which is unbelievable, right? It can do that. But as you know, we can see TMS hit anywhere in your body that you're scared about or fearful of. So it hit you in an area that you heard from your sister, the doctors say, well, you could have this the rest of your life, right?
Exactly. And the irony is, up until that point, I've had like a toothache and problems with my wisdom tooth, but I've always just gone to the dentist, they fixed it. And so I never had real, I've never like going to the dentist, but I never had kind of real, my kind of philosophy was always, yeah, I've got to go to the dentist, but at least I know I won't be in pain. And just hearing somebody actually say, we can't always fix it, and sometimes you're just left, which was horrific of that person to say it, and based on absolutely nothing other than the fact that they just didn't want to invest time in the kind of appointment. They wanted to just give her painkillers and kind of say goodbye. So
Yeah.
um
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about we went through the process of healing. Like you said, it took some time, and I want people to understand that because people think they, get better quick or read Sarno's book, but majority of people, that's not the case. It was a gradual process of ups and downs, and maybe share some of that with the audience that, there were times when the pain would shoot up and you would be wondering about what is this, and then your brain would get reactive, and maybe share the process of to where you finally got to where you are now. Um,
I
get over
think
that hump.
I think for me, and again, this goes into kind of my over analytical personality, which is always like looking for problems, looking for danger, always. Whereas for me, I just wanted to disprove the diagnosis the whole time. I was always looking to, I just didn't believe for such a long time. And even when I had that, the evidence started to build, um, as soon as the pain came back, but like, no, this is definitely, I can actually feel the muscle, I can feel this is kind of, I think at first, you just feel like as soon as there's still a physical component and you can actually, like, I think that was the bit that wasn't so clear, that took me a while to get, which is, no, there is something still going on. Your muscles in your face are contracting, or they are in a spasm, or your nerve is shooting up and down your face. That is really happening, but the reason that's happening is because of the brain and what's going on. And I think that took me a long time, that took me a really long time to really believe that this is what this was. And I would very quickly go back down looking for, and the other thing is, you hear, just, I find that on the kind of chat forums, which are kind of have been really good in some ways, but a lot of people there are always trying to kind of say, oh no, it can't be this, because if it's this, it wouldn't be this, and you just kind of get sucked into that. And as soon as you get sucked into that, you're right back down there, and I just kept doing that. um
Yeah.
so and then I think the big thing, I think the somatic tracking was really good, but I think for me, the kind of in terms of working with you, there was kind of lots and lots of things that we did, but I think a big thing was you really helping me understand my emotional state. And I think at first I was kind of getting, I was reading about journaling and expressing your emotions, and was kind of almost going backwards, looking, back for problems in my life. And did I express the emotion at the time? Did I express that my mum upset me? Did I express that, my husband said this to me at the time? But I don't think for me, the journaling works in terms of helping you understand who you are and what your triggers are. But I think it's really working on and why you get triggered. I think that is also good for that. But I think you've really got the kind of work, if you like, is processing your here and now emotions. And I think journaling can be good in terms of helping you reframe so that those emotions don't get you in the same way. But I think you first and foremost, you've got to understand that you are triggered, you are emotionally charged, and the reason for that. And that you really kind of helped me, really helped me do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the biggest piece, right? Because of these emotions are what cause the symptoms. We know that part of the brain. But like you said, it's hard to get your head around that. It's hard enough to get your head around that it's TMS, and then to go into the emotions and see it in your own life. Like we kept bringing up examples, right? Why is the pain up now? What was going on? And maybe share about how when the pain comes up, it really does distract you from your emotions, like to connecting with emotions.
100%. I mean, one of the things, if I think about like the move here, like I'm a real kind of home bird. I, move in, even when I used to go on holiday, I'd get a bit of homesick. And throughout the whole period of the transition, moving from the UK, I just didn't have any emotion. I was just emotionally shut off because I was just focused on the pain. And it was really the only thing that it was just the only thing. I didn't feel sadness. I just didn't feel anything other than this pain. And it was almost like as the move got closer, it stepped in to kind of protect me. And I really see that now. It was like as it got closer, the pain got harder and harder. And everyone would be saying to me, my friends, and I kind of, the pain was so bad, I actually withdrew a little bit from like friendship groups, even at that point, because I just was like, I can't talk to anyone. I can't, this is just, but those that I did reach out to, was saying to me, you're not even like, you're not a little bit anxious about your move, and you're not sad. And I was like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, but my face is killing me right now.
I mean, that's exactly. But I think like even now when I get like I'm getting a little bit of like I don't know, like a bit of a twitching sensation here, and I know that's because I'm feeling a little bit ramped up about doing this.
Sure.
And I would never recognize that before, right? I'd be like, no, it's fine. I'm just talking to Jim, and why would I be stressed by that? But inside me, I am. And it's just, yeah, it's just those little things that you never. And I find what really helps now is just that, no, I'm really angry about the situation, or I'm really upset, or I'm really nervous, or
Yeah, maybe talk more about that because the anger is one of those emotions. Like fear and anxiety is pretty prevalent, right? You knew that you had an anxious personality at times from your past, but maybe talk about how elusive that anger is. Sometimes you don't recognize it always when
I
it comes
totally,
up.
I'm a complete people pleaser. Um, and I think my, on this level, I think that makes me feel good, but subconsciously it doesn't. Subconsciously, like I'm angry. I'm angry that I've kind of sacrificed something, or but I'm not aware of it because consciously it's like, oh no, it feels good to have done this for that person, or it feels, um, that I'm trying to think of like, I really can't think of an example right now, but oh, it's
How many
fine.
times we shared some examples of friends and maybe but other parents with your son with school and having to do certain things that the people pleaser side said, yeah, okay, I'm going to go do it. But in the inside, you go, I don't want to do that. Right. Or you didn't really want to be there or be in that phone call or meeting.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm going to be the one to pick everyone up from school, or um you know or I'll sign up for something at work, which is, because, and not because I want to be popular. I guess I just want to maybe keep the peace. And sometimes it seems like the easier thing to do. But I never honored, and I think it's fine to do that, right, in life, but it's honoring that's not really what you want to be doing, or it is actually a chore. And that's why you're feeling the pain's really high today, because your body would rather not be the one that's, going out at 10 o'clock to do the pickup. You'd rather have done the drop off, the early one. Or maybe, another example for me will be if I'm really, really busy and someone's taking up a lot of my time. I don't know, because they just want to talk to me because they've got a lot of time on their hands, and they want to kind of, and they'll want me. Now, I'm not feeling unsafe in that situation. It's not like that person's a really nice person. They're not. But my pain would get high, and which this took me ages to realize, because actually it wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to get on with the thing I was trying to do so that I could sit down and have a nice evening and things
Right.
like that. I think for me at first, I was just looking too big. I was looking for, things that would really upset me that consciously I was aware of. And there was a bit of that, right? There's some things that are blatantly obvious. But there are lots and lots of many, many more things that I was just oblivious as to how I really felt about them.
Yeah. And that's it. And, we said use your symptom as an alarm bell or a cue or a clue, something's popped up. But like you said, with that anger and frustration, a lot of times we don't notice it. We think we're anxious, right? And we talked about that with you, with the people pleaser being, you're a really good person, right? And really want to help people. But at first it was hard to notice that I was actually angry, or I didn't want to be there meant that you were generating anger. You just thought, I don't know what was going on, or didn't make that connection, or I was anxious, or yeah. So it's really important to notice, I think, for people listening, that anger comes up anytime we don't want to do something and we do it anyway.
Completely. And a really good example, and my husband definitely won't mind me sharing this because we've discussed it, but even just the move here, that was all for him.
Yeah.
There wasn't, and I'm like really honest now, there was nothing deeply inside me that wanted to come here. And it was all because, again, like people pleasing behavior. He really wanted to take the job opportunity. He's really kind of career focused, and it was just for him. And I just never saw that at the time. I didn't see that at all. And I look back now and it's like, why would I want to I'm really kind of close and much closer to my family. We live just much closer to have a closer network of friends that lived where we live. There was just so much more for me to lose in that way. But I just didn't even, it wasn't a question that he was super bossy, or it was just that I wasn't even aware that it was something I needed to raise with him, because I just didn't feel it. And I've kind of processed a lot of that anger as well, around that move. And so that's been really interesting as well.
Yeah. And it shows too that you can get better. You don't have to change necessarily the situation, right? You're still living in the Bay Area. You didn't move back to England, and you're better, right? So you don't have to necessarily go home to get better.
No, I mean, I think maybe for some people that might have been like, you're just never going to be able to settle here. But I think for me, yeah, and I'm never going back to the UK. given
For those
given
people from the UK listening, I don't know if you like that or not, but
oh, thank goodness that I didn't give up, because I sure would miss this beautiful weather here. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you can get through it, but I needed to recognize what emotions I was going through to go through that. And maybe if I had just gone back to the UK, maybe I would have just gotten better because I would have felt settled. But then there would have been the next thing, right, that would have
yeah,
happened. And I wouldn't have been aware that it was so yeah, it's been a really interesting journey, and I still don't know if I'm ready to say I'm grateful to it. I guess I'm grateful now in terms of like I'm able, with my son and my husband, like they've had TMS type things, and I just have really helped them. And my husband in particular, who would never have been open to this. And I knew for the first kind of half of this journey, he was going along with it, but was like, almost out of desperation. But now he's just like he still can't believe it himself. And I think I said to you, Jim, the thing that really was an eye-opener, and when we decided we were ready to do the recovery story, was my son said to me a couple of weeks ago over lunch, "Mum, you don't have that jaw problem anymore, do you?" And I
Wow.
was like, "Oh wow, no." And I sometimes do get like sensations, right? I might have a bad day and they're getting less and less, every month they get less and less. But the fact that he's not aware of it is incredible. Um, so I was like, that just showed me how much progress I really have made.
Yeah, that was like a true indicator. And your husband too was so supportive in the right way. I feel like so many times we get on the call and he would tell me, "Oh, the pain's going up," and he'd be like, "There's nothing wrong with you, right?" Or he would totally support what I was saying or we were working on, that, "Hey, how could this be?" He was kind of a good support piece for you, even though maybe you didn't like it at the time.
I mean,
Uh,
I mean, at first, I think both of us kind of explored this route out of desperation. But then as the evidence started to build, he became a bigger advocate than me, because he could actually see and sit outside what was happening. And, when I'd say, "Oh, am no better," and he'd go, "Are you crazy? Like this, and this." And he was able to kind of give a more rational perspective of the progress.
yeah.
Um, so that was really, really helpful. So
Yeah.
and you just been amazing, Jim. I mean, I really can't thank you enough. And I just think I feel so terrible to you, because I now, when you try and make other people believe, right, you can see what's going on, and they're like, "No, no, maybe," it's so frustrating, right? And there must have been so many times where you just wanted to probably on Zoom rather than in your office, because you probably would have. But you kind of stuck with it and never made me feel like I was a burden or I was crazy, or it was just sometimes you were sort of firm, and which I needed, which was, just shaking your head. But no, just your support's been incredible, absolutely incredible.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and there's a patience game. I mean, I conceded people, I know it's TMS, but there's a timeline for the person and we don't know how long it's going to be. But if, like, I think your story shows if you stay with it, because I know there are ups and downs and there was moments you were thinking, "I'm not sure." And I said, "Let's just stay with it." And you did. You kept doing the somatic work. And then that last piece of really, I think like you said, you really connected those emotions. I think that was that last piece, right? That you were seeing it as a sensation and you were seeing it more neutrally, but you hadn't seen that emotional connection as clearly, right? As you did towards the end.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, I think for a long, long time, I was just trying to find the quick fix and trying to find, the modality that was going to work for me. And I don't think you need to find that. I think what you do need to do is also a lot of self-care, but self-care can look like anything, right? Um, we this Saturday just gone, we went to a kind of Elton John concert, and that is self-care, right? It's kind of dancing, enjoying something, relaxing in your own way. It doesn't Self-care isn't necessarily, I mean, sometimes it is, right? You need to meditate, sit quietly, um but it really is about something that you enjoy, that makes you feel good. And that's a big thing that I've learned as well. And not trying to find something that doesn't feel natural for you. Find something that you really, and that's, and I say that, and for me to say that now, it sounds so easy. And I know when you're in the kind of midst of that pain, you can't even remember what you used to enjoy, right? But I did find, listening to music was something that used to always really help me. I never again made that connection. So just, yeah, trying to remember, like, what is it I used to really enjoy? And that's helped me a lot. So
Yeah. And you move into more of that active role, like I said, of getting engaged and doing things you wanted to do. And we always noticed too, we always said, "Hey, when you were having fun and going on holidays and vacations, you always felt better." And then the last step, I feel like you took that step of maybe sure just getting some work, or getting involved at a level outside of yourself, right? So you didn't have so much time just with yourself. You got involved with some
yeah,
other ways.
I mean, that's it as well. There's just like so many aspects, and it's hard to say like the one thing, but I did take a job. And the interesting thing about the role that I've taken is it's actually really stressful, right? So I didn't realize it was going to be as stressful as this. And so for me, it's incredible that I've recovered while I'm doing this. But I think, so at first what happened was, the pain shot right up as soon as I started working, and to the extent that even my husband said, who totally knows what this is, but he was like, maybe it's too soon, too early in the stress. And I think this is where, like, our personalities get us into it, but they can also get us out of it. Whereas I'm quite a determined person. I was like, no, I'm going to really try and make this work. And then over time, as I was my brain was becoming less and less occupied with the pain because I just didn't have time, that also really reduced it. And then when I got more stressed at work, I did see the pain go up, but then it was like the correlation was so obvious.
Yeah.
But now what I do is, if I've had a really stressful time at work, I honor that, right? I don't necessarily have to go and do 2 hours of meditation, but I'm mindful of, yeah, that was a really tough day and that's really made me feel stressed, or I'm angry by that today. And I don't express that necessarily to anyone, but I accept that that's the impact it's had on me.
Yeah.
And I kind of process that, rather than just thinking, oh, everyone goes to work, everyone gets stressed. You shouldn't be so sort of ramped up by it. So
Yeah. You've really embraced those feelings instead of distracting or rationalizing them away. Right. And that's a big piece. And it's not, like you said, something that has to be 2 hours of journaling or meditation. It's just in that moment, which is so important through your day. You make that recognition more often, more likely your pain's going to dissipate quickly instead of building up throughout the day.
for sure. And I think another thing that I would kind of share, I've learned, is if it starts off as a bad day, it doesn't have to end as a bad day. So I always used to go into this, oh, the pain's really high this morning, it's just going to get worse and worse. And sometimes I think you're so ramped up, and if you can't, I still have, I would say, once every 2 weeks, an afternoon where I can't really get in touch with my feelings. I don't really know what's going on, but the pain's high and I can't. And I'm still working on that, but that's like once every 2 weeks, and that used to be every single day.
Yeah.
So,
It'll just continue to get better and better because you'll just recognize that that's your neural pathway for a lot of your emotions. And everybody asks the same question, well, why can't I feel it a different way? Right. We talked about that. Why is it always going to the face? And that's just a well-worn path for you. It is for anybody else. But the more you do get in touch with those emotions, you're seeing, a lot of times you'll sometimes just feel them as emotions, like in your chest or somewhere else. And sometimes they're going to go out the neural pathway again for you. Yeah. Well, thanks so much. Do you want to share any parting words for anybody who's struggling, or what advice would you give people?
Yeah, I think belief is just number one. I think you have to really believe it, whatever sensation is going on, even if you can see you're kind of, I've developed, sometimes now my face just twitches all over. I can see it. It's kind of, I think belief, I think really honoring and recognizing, getting more in touch with yourself, and just understanding yourself and understanding your triggers. And then I think processing and just being respectful of them and not comparing yourself to other people. And it's like, well, I shouldn't be stressed by this. It's like, but the reality is you are, the person next to you may not be stressed by that, but they might be stressed or upset or anxious about something that wouldn't affect you. And so I think it's just really honoring who you are and the emotions, and none of them are right or wrong. And then I think just also, I think just trying to do the kind of whole self-care thing, which can look like it, but things that you just genuinely enjoy, feel nice, relax you. I think that would be my, and just try less hard, which is,
Yeah.
I'm saying that because I was one of the worst, but
Yeah, but you mean, that's perfect. Everything you said is absolutely fantastic and correct. And yeah, the last piece of just going, be less hard on yourself. And I mean, that's one of the personality traits that we see, like you said, get you in trouble, but also got you out if you can apply it in the right way. So Hayley, you've done an amazing job. So I'm so happy you came on.
Someone can just take away something from this, because for me, the recovery stories were the things that really helped build my belief. So if just one person believes because of this, then that'll be amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're going to impact people, and people can recognize and hear what you went through, and that it could be any kind of pain. So yours was this facial pain, which was unique. right? Not everybody, people have a back pain or a headache or, a knee pain, but it doesn't matter, right? It can happen anywhere in your body. So
Definitely.
wonderful. Well, thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it, your time. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it for everything you've done. You've just like honestly changed my life. It's been incredible.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Well, I'll catch up with you later.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.